Greetings everyone. Boobs and big beefy guys in loincloths. That's what we're going to talk about today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Well, for today's Blu-ray update, I have one of a movie that was kind of enshrouded in mystery and pre-adolescent curiosity for me for a very long time. I first saw bits and pieces of this movie around the dawn of pay television back in, I think, 1982. My parents had got First Choice and Super Channel, which later merged into one mega pay TV channel called First Choice Super Channel. And one of the things that they were showing on this was this particular movie, and it was really strange to me because, of course, I watched a lot of cartoons, still do, but I watched a lot of cartoons back then because, of course, I was a kid and that's what kids watch. So most of my viewing was cartoons. So there was this one cartoon in particular that I kept seeing bits and pieces of but only on the pay TV channel, and I knew it was a movie of some kind, but I had no idea what it was. And the few scenes that I saw had, you know, big beefy guys in loincloths and spaceships and aliens and naked women and like people having sex and stuff, and I was like, wow, this is a lot different than the Smurfs. And it just blew my 10-year-old mind. I'd never seen anything like this before. I am, of course, talking about the seminal classic from 1981, Heavy Metal, based on the magazine of the same name, the fantasy sci-fi anthology magazine. Great stuff. I love this movie. And I didn't actually get around to seeing the entire thing until about 10 years later when it was finally released on well, at the time, VHS and Laserdisc. I did not have the Laserdisc, but I did have the VHS edition. And I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it because around that time also I had started reading the magazine. And I really liked the magazine because, I mean, it was a lot darker and edgier and sort of racier sci-fi and fantasy, but the bottom line is it was sci-fi and fantasy stuff. And some of the artwork in it was just amazing. So I really enjoyed the movie because I feel like the movie really captures the essence of what makes the magazine so interesting. You get all these different art styles and all these different types of stories, and it's just a wellspring of creativity for independent artists and writers. And the movie really captured the essence of that by having, again, an anthology format and having a variety of different animation styles and such, and I always really liked it. But it was funny seeing bits and pieces of this as a kid because some of the imagery from it just kind of burned into my brain because it was just unlike anything I'd ever seen before. You know, seeing cartoon characters having sex and naked animated bouncing boobs and whatnot. It was it was pretty mind-blowing for a 10-year-old boy. Now, one of the things I wanted to touch on is the fact that we really don't see a lot of movies like this anymore. I mean, it's almost all CG stuff right now, or really slick, well-produced, you know, perfect animation type things. The thing I like about movies like Heavy Metal and other movies from that era is they were essentially independent films done by small animation studios a lot of the time. This, I think, was one of the few exceptions because this was actually put out by it was Columbia Pictures backed it, so they had a little bit more money to spend on some of the independent features. But the thing I like about these types of movies is they just have this kind of, I don't know, raw quality to them, and just sort of pure artistry quality to them. Because watching them, you can't help but stop and think for a moment periodically that, hey, this is all hand-drawn. This wasn't done with computers. There was no shortcuts here. This was people sitting at their desks, slaving away for hours and hours and hours, creating these amazing animated worlds. And so, from nothing. I mean, they painted backgrounds and drawing the cells and painting on the back of the cells. I mean, it was a huge, laborious, time-consuming process. And you had to have the patience of a saint to do it, man. And looking at movies like this just shows how much could be done in the medium. Now, that said, granted, some of the animation in this is quite dated by today's standards, and some of the animation techniques would look pretty rough by today's standards. But back in 1981, when this came out, I mean, it was pretty creative stuff, you know, and you just don't see movies like this anymore. So how is the Blu-ray, you're probably wondering? Well, I mean, as I say, due to the different animation styles and whatnot, it's a pretty rough-looking film to begin with. But as far as being faithful to the original film source and being an accurate transfer, I think this is as good as heavy metal's ever going to look, to be honest. I mean, you can't make silk from a sow's ear. I mean, the film looks the way it looks, largely because of the way it was made back in the day. And, you know, if you're expecting something pristine and beautiful like a lot of today's animated features, that's not what you're going to get with heavy metal. But honestly, I think the fact that it's a little rough around the edges just adds to the charm of it, because the magazine is very rough around the edges a lot of the time, and, you know, with the differing art styles and whatnot. And I think it just adds to the overall experience. I have not seen the sequel, Heavy Metal 2000. Heavy Metal 2000 was not an anthology film. It was just a single extended story about some fantasy warrior chick who was apparently the girlfriend of the editor-in-chief of the magazine. But I have heard that they're actually doing a new heavy metal movie, or they've been talking about it for a while, which will be more in the style of this one, namely an anthology series with a variety of different directors and different animation styles and whatnot, but made using more modern techniques and such. So I hope that happens, and maybe it'll turn into a series of them. I don't know. It would be great, because I'd love to see this kind of thing done today. But let's just take a quick look on here. As far as special features go, you basically have everything that was on the DVD edition just ported straight over. There's really nothing new here that hasn't been available before. The special features are standard definition. You have the original feature-length rough cut, which has a lot of the animation, like the unfinished animation and whatnot, in there, and it's pretty cool to look at. I mean, especially if you're interested in the technique of animation, as I am. It's interesting to look at that, because it gives you a real insight into the different processes that were used to create the animation for the film. And that has optional commentary by Carl Macek, who Robotech fans will not be unfamiliar with, because he was the creative force behind Robotech. And I believe the reason they got him to do the commentary for this is because he had actually written a book about the making of the movie. In addition to being a producer on a number of shows and helping to bring anime over to North America, Carl Macek was also something of an authority just on animation in general. He was often tapped to help with behind-the-scenes stuff about animation from back in the 80s. You also have some deleted scenes with optional commentary, and then Imagining Heavy Metal, a fairly meaty documentary. It was quite interesting stuff. The deleted scenes are interesting because they have a full sequence that was going to be a part of the film. It was going to bridge two of the sequences in the movie, but they just felt that while it was a very well done sequence, it just kind of interrupted the flow a little too much, so it was cut out. But you can see it in its entirety here in the deleted scenes with music and everything as well. So, as I say, as far as the transfer quality goes, it's basically as good as it's ever going to look. And let me just fix this here. So there we have, that's Den, the aforementioned muscular guy in the loincloth, voiced by John Candy in the movie. By the way, SCTV fans, take note. 3 SCTV alumni are in this, doing voices for various characters. You have John Candy, Harold Ramis, and Eugene Levy. And it's great. And the thing I like about this is it doesn't really take itself too seriously, and it has a lot of fun. And it's obvious that the voice actors were having a lot of fun with the characters and whatnot. And there we have a bunch of angry-looking aliens, and that's from the Captain Stern segment, which is quite hilarious. And basically, they're all looking at Captain Stern on trial. He's sort of a big, hunky, beefy space captain hero type character who's anything but heroic. So here we just have basically a Sony 3D ad. Now I should mention also this particular Blu-ray edition was a Best Buy exclusive. And now when I bought it, I actually got it a couple months ago. And when I bought it, it was still a Best Buy exclusive. I noticed the other day, however, it has since got like full release, and I actually saw it over at Walmart. So you should be able to find this fairly easily now. Yeah, and if you're a fan of the movie, then I definitely recommend it. And if, like me, you're a fan of this type of movie that we just don't see anymore, it really is a dead genre, and that makes me sad. You know, once in a blue moon you'll see some independent film, but really nowhere near as many as you did back in the 80s. If you like this kind of thing, I also recommend checking out Rock and Rule. Now this is available on Blu-ray, however, I've hung on to the, this is the 2-disc collector's edition DVD, and the reason I hung on to this is because it actually has 2 different cuts of the movie. It's originally a Canadian film put together by Nelvana Animation, really successful animation company here in Canada, and this was their first sort of attempt at doing a feature-length production. And they were kind of hoping for the same kind of success that Heavy Metal had had, and you know, the same kind of success that some of Ralph Bakshi's films. Ralph Bakshi was another director who did a lot of great independent animated features in the 70s and 80s. So anyway, the thing that's interesting about this is it has 2 separate cuts. There was an American theatrical cut, and then there was the original Canadian cut. And the thing that's notable about it is the Canadian cut actually has a different actor doing the voice of the main character. And sadly, the alternate cut is not available on the Blu-ray edition. The Blu-ray edition just has the American theatrical cut. But this is an absolute... I'll give you a quick look at this set here, because I think this is a wonderful companion piece to Heavy Metal. And if you can find this 2-disc special edition, this is definitely the one to get. So it's just a slip cover, and we have Mock. Mock is the big villain in there. Sort of a cross between Mick Jagger and David Bowie. And he's basically a superstar kind of thing, and he wants to capture this woman to get her voice, because her voice is the only thing that can unlock this demon creature that he wants to control. Let me just spin that around there. There we go. So we got the 2 discs there. There is a single disc edition of this out, but again, if you're going to get the single disc, just get the Blu-ray, because the Blu-ray is quite nice. And then if we actually pop the discs out and take a look, there you go. So you have Mock, the main there, and then the main character guy there, whose name I can't remember because it's been so long since I've actually watched the movie. But yeah, anyway, it's a good movie. I wouldn't quite put it on par with Heavy Metal, but it's definitely a lot of fun. And much like Heavy Metal, oh, and there's the demon creature, by the way. Much like Heavy Metal, it has a great soundtrack. I mean, you've got a lot of notable, you got Debbie Harry, Iggy Pop, Cheap Trick, and Lou Reed. And just like that, with Heavy Metal, you've got a lot of notable, you know, sort of hair metal bands from the era as well, including Cheap Trick again. They just seem to be everywhere with these animated movies. And then also you got a nice, nice booklet there. And then here you have the majority of Rock and Roll's staff. So look at that, huge crew to put together this animated film. And it's great stuff. And if you like sort of dystopian type of stories, Rock and Roll is a good one for that as well, because it's very much in a dystopian kind of world. And Mock is just kind of the king of the heap there. People are just slaves to their entertainment, you know. So anyway, good stuff. Very good, a lot of fun. The animation, this is really good too. I mean, at this point in Nelvana's history, they hadn't really done any features or a lot of series television. They later went on to have some great success with stuff like the Raccoons. They actually did the Droids and Ewoks cartoons, the Star Wars cartoons back in the mid-'80s, and all kinds of stuff. Prior to this, what they were mostly known for was some TV specials. They did one called The Devil and Daniel Mouse, which is kind of loosely based on the old Devil and Daniel Webster story, and that's actually included as a bonus on here. And in many ways, it's kind of a prototype story for Rock and Roll, because it's very similar kind of thing. You know, in that case, it's actually the devil, but in this case, Mock is kind of like the devil character in a way. So, just to give you a quick rundown of the special features, we have Disc 1, 1.85 to 1 anamorphic widescreen transfer of the theatrical version, the making of Rock and Roll, and an audio commentary with director Clive Smith, and an extensive character sketch gallery. Very cool to see the, you know, just the development of the character designs and whatnot, and the making of. Also, they go into sort of their ideas about what they wanted each character to look like, and if they were kind of inspired by any real-life celebrities, that sort of thing. And then Disc 2, you have the alternate version of Rock and Roll, The Devil and Daniel Mouse, which is a 27-minute special, and was the inspiration for Rock and Roll. Now, some people have said that the version of Devil and Daniel Mouse that's on here is a cut-down version, but I don't think it is, because, I mean, 27 minutes for a half-hour special, that doesn't leave a lot of room for commercials. So that seems pretty uncut to me. I don't think it's ever been any longer than that, so I don't know where these people are getting their information from. How we made The Devil and Daniel Mouse, so a making of about the special. DVD-ROM feature of the complete Rock and Rule script, work print title sequence, and a 15-minute work print of the ending of Rock and Rule Collector's Booklet, which we just looked at, extensive sketch gallery, and more. So you get a lot of extra stuff on the second disc here. So if you're at all interested in this movie, or if you're a fan of it, it's definitely worthwhile to track down the 2-disc version, because you get way more stuff than you do in the regular edition. And then finally, one more that kind of goes into that genre of independent films. This has always been kind of a guilty pleasure movie for me. It is blatantly ripped off of Star Wars, but I love it anyway. It was originally in theaters in 3D in 1985, and I saw it in theaters in 3D. Yes, a 2D animated cartoon in 3D. Go figure. I'm of course talking about Starchaser, The Legend of Orin. I love this movie. It's such a guilty pleasure. It was actually done by Stephen Hahn, who actually went on to produce the Dino Riders animated series a couple years later. And beyond that, I'm not really sure what else he's done. He just kind of dropped off the face of the earth. But I always really enjoyed Starchaser. And unfortunately, this is not the 3D version, but it doesn't really need to be in 3D, honestly. I mean, the 3D effect is more just kind of a novelty, I think. But it did definitely add some pretty major, like looking down corridors and such, looked really impressive in 3D, as I recall. There's no inserts or anything in there. But this is notable in that this is, I believe, the first time the movie was available in widescreen. I actually used to own this on VHS back in the day, and I really enjoyed the VHS. Now, I should warn you, if you're looking to watch this with your kids, there is a little bit of rough language in there. One of the main characters, sort of the Han Solo type rough and tumble guy, is a cigar-chomping, wisecracking guy with his own ship, and he says damn a lot. And then there's one point where this female robot calls this computer character a son of a bitch. So, no big deal to us grown-ups, but if there's any little kids watching, they might find that a little bit shocking. So, essentially, this is the story of a young boy who lives in this mining colony, and he's a slave, and there's a lot of other people there, and they just lived down there for generations, and they're basically under the oppressive ruling thumb of Zygon, who is this evil sort of dictator character. And they've all been conditioned to believe that all there is to the world is this underground world that they've been a part of, and they've been told never to dig up, because up is hell. So enter Orin. Orin decides one day to dig up and see for himself if there's anything up there, because he believes that there's something more to the world. And he finds his way out, and there's like a whole universe out there that they didn't even know existed. So he makes it his mission to, you know, ally himself with whoever he can and free his people, basically. And you know, it's a fairly straightforward story that we've seen a lot of times before in different forms, but it works. I mean, it's fun. It's got some pretty cool animation in it and some pretty scary, you know, villain characters, and it's fun. And he has like a magic sword that he uses, which is kind of like a lightsaber. Yeah. So, anyway, Starchaser, The Legend of Orin. So, I think these three make nice companions to each other. Heavy Metal is just an awesome Blu-ray. Rock and Rule is awesome. And Starchaser is awesome as well. So, yeah. So, if you like one, you'll probably like all the others as well. Of the three, I think Heavy Metal is the best one. But the other two make nice companion pieces to it as well. And then finally, pretty much anything by Ralph Bakshi you can put on that shelf as well. The old independent films. Ralph Bakshi, of course, is most well known probably for Fritz the Cat and his animated adaptation of Lord of the Rings. American Pop is considered his all-time great movie. This is the only one I currently own, Heavy Traffic, which I only just recently saw. I actually picked this up for like $3 a little while ago at London Drugs, I think it was. This is pretty cool. It's actually got an insert. Oh my god! It's kind of a mix of live action and animation. It's mostly animation, but Ralph Bakshi stuff is definitely not for kids. It is totally for grown-ups. And there's the chapter list, and there you go. But yeah, I really enjoyed Heavy Traffic. It's just the sort of the story of this guy trying to get by in life and dealing with all the weirdos that he meets along the way. He's a young artist. He has a neurotic mother, two-timing father. Yeah, and he's just kind of living in New York trying to get by, and encounters a lot of strange people along the way. This is a good one, actually. I really like. I think this is one of Ralph Bakshi's better films, and I really enjoyed it a lot. Yeah. So, but again, not for the kiddies. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I was really just going to talk about the one Blu-ray, but I thought, well, why don't I turn this into a little thing about the lost art of independent animated films, which you just don't seem to see anymore. And it's very sad. And it seems like there really aren't a lot from that genre at all. It just seemed to come and go very quickly. And that's unfortunate, because there was some really good stuff to come out of that period, sort of from the, the 70s to the mid-80s, thereabouts, There was a few in the early 90s, and then I think that's kind of when CG started to take over. Once Toy Story hit, man, it just changed everything. I mean, Toy Story is fantastic, and we love it, but it kind of ruined animated films in a way, because now everybody's doing them all in CG. I mean, it's like the art of 2D animation just seems to have died. You wonder why I like all this stuff, all the old 80s cartoons and whatnot? That's why. I just love the art of 2D animation. And it's sad that it just doesn't seem to be around as much. It's around a little bit, but I mean, like in some of the, kids shows and stuff. But even then, there's CG enhanced and whatnot. It's just not the same. Or the art style is really over stylized and not as, I don't know. The character design isn't as more sort of realistic as it used to be, or whatever. I don't know. It just ain't like it used to be, man. But that's why it's nice to have these beautiful DVD and Blu-ray editions of the ones we did get over the years. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it from me to you for now. So until next time, thanks for watching, and sayonara.